What is going on, YouTube? Gabins here, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Tech Pills weekly live stream. Hope everyone's doing alright. So let's start off this episode with a kind of a weird news. Also, quick spoiler, this episode is gonna be kind of heavy on gaming. Not for any particular reason, but just because I found some pretty interesting gaming related news this week, So the first news for today is ShotX Studio releases torrent of their own game, Danger Gazers. So there's this very small indie game studio called ShotX that's only made of the developer himself, and he released its main game, its new game, Danger Gazers, for free on the Pirate Bay as a torrent, and it's fully DRM free. It's the full game, no strings attached, and that's just awesome of him. And he also posted on this on the subreddit r/crackwatch, which is specifically for pirated content, and he received a whole lot of praise from the whole Reddit community. And let me actually just scroll through the actual post itself. So he actually received lots of praise from the whole Reddit and pirate community for this action, and this actually resulted, funnily enough, in an increase in sales of reportedly 400%, which is pretty crazy. I mean, it's great to see that the pirate community isn't just made up of people who just don't care about what they're pirating, and they actually do care about small developers and indie developers and people who actually love what they're doing. And particularly in this case, the developer showed that he just wants people to play his game so much that he's willing to put out a fully DRM free pirate essentially copy on the Pirate Bay by himself, which is pretty great in my opinion. Anyway, the game, again, Danger Gazers, is available on both Steam and the Pirate Bay for you to download. So, and of course it has official Linux support, so there's a plus there. Still related to gaming, let's move on to the next news for today. Slay the Spire 2.0 patch is out, featuring the long-awaited fourth character, the Watcher. Now, I do have Slay the Spire in my Steam library, and I've played lots of it. I still haven't completed it because it's a very difficult game, let me tell you that. But if you don't know what Slay the Spire is, it's basically a roguelike game, but that's not your classic roguelike. It has a combat system that's based on cards, weirdly enough, and on the fly deck building. So what you do is, as with any other roguelike, you have kind of a map to explore. So you have to go from level to level, and you have to face some enemies along the way. And of course, you have some more interesting random encounters that can be either more enemies or special events in the game, or of course merchants that sell you stuff. And as you go through the game, you start collecting these cards, and you add them to your deck. And by adding them to your deck, you can play them in the next combat. And there are 4 characters at this point since the 2.0 patch, and every character has its unique kind of play style, if you want. And it's a very fun and interesting game. You can find it on Steam. It's available, of course, for Linux. It's a native Linux game. So if you want to check it out, the 2.0 patch was just released, and it's not a DLC, so it's just a free content upgrade that brings these new characters. I was saying the Watcher, which is a very interesting character. It's like sort of a monk, if you want, that has its combat is based on combat stances. So there's the calm stance, and there's the rate stance, which is all pretty cool. I mean, it's again a new character, so a whole different play style. And overall, it's a great update. And if you haven't tried the game, I really suggest you do. Again, you can find it on Steam. It's Slay the Spire. So let's move on to the next news for today. Kubuntu and Tuxedo Computers collaborate on a new KDE-powered laptop. And this is actually a news I kind of ripped off from Michael from Tux Digital. They actually sent him a review unit of the new Kubuntu Focus laptop. That's how it's called. And I've seen his unboxing, and of course I went through the specs and got informed by myself. If you're interested in this kind of device, it's a okay, let me actually show you some of Michael's video. Of course I won't show all of it, but so it's a very interesting device. Again, it's built by Tuxedo Computers in collaboration with the Kubuntu people. So it's an official Kubuntu laptop, which is very interesting. So it's a Clevo laptop, as most of Tuxedo Computers are. And the specs are, it's got an i7-9750H, which is a 6-core hyper-threaded, so 6-core 12 threads CPU. And an NVIDIA RTX 2060, which is an interesting choice for a Linux laptop, but that's what the laptop market currently has to offer. So, and possibly the most interesting feature is a 16.1 inch 1080p 144 Hz IPS display. So this laptop actually has, at least on paper, one of the best computer laptop screens that you can find on the market right now. It also has 32 gigabytes of RAM, 1 terabyte of Samsung Evo Plus NVMe SSD, and reportedly 3+ hours of advertised battery life, which is to be expected for a machine of this type. I think this is more of a mobile workstation than a laptop proper, but that's fine. There's many people who actually need this kind of power and need to be able to basically just lug their computer and bring it from home to the office or wherever they need to, and they don't care that much about battery life, I guess. So this laptop is actually pretty great for those kind of people, and I envision some like developers even using this. This is obviously more oriented towards gaming, since it has a 2060 and the 144 Hz display, which are pretty great. But I mean, if you're a developer and you're probably working on something like a GPU project, I can tell you this laptop sounds very promising for you. It has the RTX 2060, so you can use either OpenCL or CUDA. And if you know me, you know I'd suggest you to use OpenCL because it's open source and it's a standard, opposed to CUDA, which is NVIDIA specific and not really something that I can endorse. But anyway, one particular thing about this laptop is that, of course, it comes with the Kubuntu. I mean, it's a collaboration with the Kubuntu people, so of course it has to come with Kubuntu. But it's not stock Kubuntu as you may think. It's a heavily customized version of it, both graphically and in terms of the pre-installed software. It has a bunch of stuff going on. It's pretty interesting. But I will leave these details to actual reviews for you to check out. Of course, all of the hardware features are enabled, including the GPU and all that kind of stuff. If you're buying this thing with Linux pre-installed, you expect the software support to be 100%. And of course, in this case, it is. One other interesting thing is that it comes with full disk encryption pre-enabled, which is something I think that more manufacturers should start doing. It's not an easy thing. I mean, you have to make sure that once you encrypt your disk, for your client, the key doesn't get compromised from. I mean, you of course set some kind of password, and the password of course protects the private key to encrypt your disk. Sorry, but if the final user doesn't know the password, so either you send them the password separately, like in an email or something, and yes, an email or any kind of a mean to send a password isn't secure inherently, but of course the user will need to actually change it. At least I hope they do once they receive the actual machine. So it opens up a kind of an interesting discussion about if hardware manufacturers should enable full disk encryption on their devices, because if the password has to be transmitted from the manufacturer to the final user, at some point between the manufacturer and the final user, this password can be stolen, and the private key along with it. And unless the user changes the private key, even if they change the password, their laptop could still be compromised if it gets stolen. I don't know. It's a kind of a weird scenario, but most of these security analysis scenarios are pretty weird to begin with, and they need to be considered. After all, it depends of course on the kind of a user, who the final user is. So if you're just like, I don't know, a gamer or low profile programmer or something, you shouldn't be worried, I think. But if you're someone that works on more high profile stuff, I think you could be concerned by this kind of stuff. I don't know. Anyway, nobody stops you from wiping everything and reinstalling from the ground up. So Eric Adams joins the chat. Hello. Hi, hope you're doing fine. So we're talking about the Kubuntu Focus laptop and the fact that it ships with the full disk encryption and all the security concerns that that come from that. Of course, it has the Kubuntu logo on the keyboard. This goes without saying. And Phoronix actually did some testing on this laptop, and it gets to about 80 degrees maximum internal temperature between the CPU and the GPU under load, which indicates, at least in my opinion, a pretty good cooling considering the components. Overall, I think this is an interesting device, and if you want to check it out, just check out the Tux Digital YouTube channel, run by my friend Michael Tennell. He's doing a great job, and he'll probably release a actual review of the device pretty soon. He actually already released an unboxing again, if you're just tuning in, and he'll soon be releasing a full review of it. So again, check it out. And of course, Tuxedo, Kubuntu people, whoever is in charge of marketing and distribution, if you want to send a unit out for review, of course, feel free to get in contact. I'd be really interested to check out this device for myself. But anyway, let's have a look at the chat, shall we? Eric says it looks like an S system. Who is the manufacturer? So again, it's from Tuxedo Computers. I think they're a German-based company, and the actual laptop itself is from Clevo. So here's that. So let's move on to the next news, and this is a very, very interesting and controversial one, and I think it's gonna piss many of you off. So XFC 4.16 will come with client-side decoration out of the box. So let that sit in for a moment. Whew. So this was a change in libxfc for UI, which is the library that apparently manages most of the UI in except in the XFC desktop environment, at least in the XFC core applications. And according to the announcement, almost all the dialogues will be converted to using CST without additional changes, which is very nice, not requiring any extra work on the app front of the things. And I want to say good job XFC on adopting a more modern look for your DE. I mean, I don't know if you know, you probably can guess considering the applications I develop, but I'm a very high proponent of client-side decorations and incorporating the window decoration inside of the actual window itself. I think it makes sense. I think it saves space and avoids duplicating stuff and having like these style bars that are basically useless except for the window controls and dragging the thing around, which, I mean, client-side decoration is great. I think it's great, but the thing here is that many people actually not only don't like it, but actually hate it. And so I'm saying that this is controversial because I've seen discussions of people, mostly from the KDE Plasma community, saying that CSD is just plain bad, that they don't want it, and I'm not really sure why, but I think that most of the demographic that hates CSD also uses XFCE because up until now it didn't have any CSD. So it's gonna be an interesting time seeing 4.16 XFCE 4.16 actually making it into production. Let's get to the chat. Eric Adams says, does that mean they have to change their other apps to use CSD? Like, I wonder what Tuner is going to look like. Apparently Tuner is going to use CSD. Oh, just a clarification there. Apparently they won't drop menus, like traditional menus like file, edit, view, and that kind of stuff. They won't drop them. So you will have CSD and menus at the same time, which I guess it's better than just not having CSD at all. But Tuner should actually be converted to CSD as well. So I mean, this is just an announcement after all. We'll see. Okay, we do have a screenshot from OMG Ubuntu, actually. Let me show it to you. So here's the screenshot of the settings of XFCE using CSD. And just from this little change, I think it looks a lot better. So, and here's a screenshot of I think these are the system about XFCE desktop environment. So this is another window from the settings menu, and there's no more screenshots for now. So yeah, most of the UI will change, and I think that the very beginning they won't have too many changes, and that it will kind of transition as time goes. Again, Eric says, also, are they going to move to Wayland? I always think of Wayland when I hear CSD. Okay, as far as I know, there haven't been any announcement about Wayland, but since they're moving to GTK 3, I think that that's probably on the way. So I don't know. XFCE at the end of the day has always been a slow moving desktop environment, not to any decrement to it, but just the nature of it. It's always lagged behind a little bit in both aesthetics and features, and it's some people believe that this makes it more stable, and in a way it does, because it doesn't use bleeding edge technology, which is, I mean, it's a decision that I can appreciate. For some people, this does make sense. Anyway, let's move on to the next news, and this is again a gaming related news, and a very weird one, to be honest. Google and Valve are reportedly working together to bring Steam to Chrome OS. I effed that up, sorry. So apparently, this comes from an article from an Android Police. And David Raddock of Android Police reportedly spoke with Kan Liu, Director of Product Management for Chrome OS. And he reports that apparently the Chrome team is working on bringing Steam to Chromebooks. So there's no confirmation of any of anything that let's start over. We know nothing of any direct collaboration between Google and Valve on this, but it's pretty fair to imagine that they are actually working together on this. So the Furnace dev joins the chat. Hey there, hope you're doing all right. So as I was saying, the Chrome team is working on bringing Steam to Chromebooks. And while that's already kind of possible to an extent using Crostini, which is the Linux compatibility layer for Chrome OS, performance isn't all that great. And that has to do with both the fact that Chromebooks typically don't have like the highest end specs, but at the same time, it has to do with the fact that, I don't remember, and I don't know if I even ever knew how Crostini actually works, but it should be, I don't want to say a virtual machine, but it should be a container running Linux distributions. So that could be the reason. Maybe there's no hardware acceleration, or there's some sort of software video acceleration or something. So that could be the reason, and I'm pretty sure that there's something to do with the fact that Crostini is actually isolated from the system. So maybe possibly they're working on enabling the installation of Steam to the core operating system as a quote-unquote traditional package. And maybe they will be making use of the new Steam Linux runtime that's been released a while ago by Valve. And if you don't know what that is, you know Steam Play that has Proton and other third-party compatibility tools, like one for running DOSBox games, another one for running like other third-party distributions of Proton. So Valve actually released another compatibility tool called Steam Linux Runtime, which is like a bundle of libraries, and as the name says, it's a runtime for running your Steam games and avoiding like library compatibility issues. So probably they'll be using that to bridge the gap between like what Chrome OS is and what a traditional Linux distribution is. This is very interesting because if it happens and it catches on, it would make for a pretty noticeable increase in Linux, in Steam Linux user base, and that would also force game developers and publishers to start looking at Linux as a real, or at least more compelling platform for their games. On another note, what about Stadia? Stadia, if you don't know what Stadia is, it's the game streaming service that Google launched last year. And as for now, it hasn't got a huge success, mostly because game streaming isn't actually all that good, regardless of what technology or what service or data centers you have. You're still streaming a real-time game, which I think it doesn't work. It doesn't even work all that well in a LAN. So imagine all across the internet. I don't think that will go anywhere. But apparently, if they're really working on this, does this mean that they consider Stadia a flop already? That's a very interesting point for discussion. I'm really curious to see what you guys think. All right, let's move on to the next topic of today. And I actually have a couple of software spotlights here to talk about. The first one is Howdy. Howdy is an an open source replacement for Windows Hello. What is Windows Hello, you might ask? Let me tell you. It's an authentication system built into Microsoft Windows that allows you to unlock your device using your face. And of course, that needs some actual hardware to do that. You need a webcam that also has IR blasters, so infrared blasters, so it can actually get a depth map of your face and actually recognize the whole 3D structure of your face. And for the longest time, Windows Hello, of course, being a Microsoft feature, hasn't been enabled on anything but Windows. And apparently someone has worked on some kind of a compatibility tool, or at least a re-implementation of it. So it's called Howdy. You can find it on GitHub at, okay, let me just post the link in the chat here. And it's okay. It's the actual functioning of it is very simple. It uses Python, and it integrates into the central authentication system of Linux, which is SPAM, so that it works everywhere. Login, lock screen, sudo, whatever, just name it. And if you need to type a password, you can use this instead. And it requires, of course, as Windows Hello, an IR enabled camera or webcam. And of course, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those quality of life features that as Linux users tend to want but not get for a long time. But of course, it's not as secure as a password is, for obvious reasons. If you have like a twin or someone that looks really similar to you, or if you have like a very high resolution photo, and about the depth map, you can even use like a mannequin head or something, and you can just get around this locking system. So it's not more secure than a password. In fact, it's less secure, but again, it's convenient. So I think that if you have full disk encryption in your computer already, and you want to use this on top of it, it may just work, because at the end of the day, if you have full disk encryption, you still have to put in a password on boot to actually start the computer. So from there on, if you just want to unlock your screen using your face just as a convenience, you can just do that using Howdy. Now, I haven't tried this myself since I don't have an IR enabled camera, but if you want to try it out, just check it out. Again, the link is in the chat. It's open source, it's available for Linux, of course. And just let me know, maybe in the comments of this video, maybe send me a message either on Telegram or in the Telegram group. You, of course, for the Telegram group, you have the link over, oh, I always get this wrong, over here. You can just use the QR code if you're into that. Again, if you have an IR enabled camera, you try Howdy out and let me know what you think of it. Let's look at the chat. Eric says, I had been using Moonlight and PowerSec when I had a Windows PC, which is an NVIDIA GeForce, which unfortunately doesn't work on Linux from what I can tell. So I love the concept of streaming from a high power to low power device. Can't seem to find a good option for Linux at this point. Actually, you can use Steam for that. Since, okay, I don't know, it's been a while now, but you can either use in-home streaming with Steam and like a mobile device or another Steam-enabled x86 computer. And that works on the LAN, and it works pretty well, but at least for me, it isn't great. I just don't like the lag in general when I'm doing input in my game. So, but again, I'm one of those people that plays Quake, so possibly I'm a different I'm not a target for this, but I don't know. I just like to have as low response time as I can. Anyway, let's move on to the next news. Oh, well, the next software spotlight really, vector slicer. And I won't be showing anything for this because this isn't ready. It's just something I wanted you to know about. So I found this in the Word group in the GNOME GitLab repo. And it is, or at least it will be, a tool that allows you to export SVGs into multi-page PDFs. What does this mean? If you ever wanted to do like a presentation or a fancy document using Inkscape, you quickly realize that Inkscape doesn't have the ability to handle multiple pages. It only handles one page, which is fine for most of what you need to do with SVGs in general. But if you want to do a presentation, mostly that's for presentations actually, you don't have an easy way to export all of your pages to a PDF or to something else, or even do like a multiple image export. I think you can do that, but then you have to convert to like use other commands and work around this lack of feature of Inkscape to actually do what you want to. And Vector Slicer will try to work around that, and they provide it's a GTK and Rust app, but at this point it still doesn't work. And I actually tried to build it myself and run it, and while it does run, it just outputs blank PDFs, which is understandable. This isn't available yet. There's just the code and the public repo. So what it will allow you to do is you just have a template, an SVG template of a presentation, and probably they will like provide more templates, and then you just build your presentation on top of that template, and then you feed that SVG that you made with Inkscape to Vector Slicer, and it will just generate a nice PDF output. I don't know, let's see where that goes. This is definitely something I need to keep an eye on, so I just wanted to let you know about it. Let's look at the chat. Eric says, I've tried Steam and it seems to run pretty poorly. Maybe it's my Wi-Fi. Yeah, Wi-Fi in general isn't a great technology for game streaming, so I suggest you try using maybe your desktop and your laptop, or your laptop and another laptop, and use them with just Ethernet cables and see where that goes. And Discount Jack joins the conversation and says, if you would be fine to move to the cloud, it's possible GeForce Now has either made it to Linux or will at some point, I'm sure. It's probably not directed to me, because again, I'm not the type of person who will be able to use game streaming. Actually, like my games to run locally, so. But it'd be interesting to see GeForce Now make it to Linux. Let's move on to the chat. Is there a way to tell if my laptop webcam has IR? Maybe Googling, DuckDuckGoing. I'm not sure. If your laptop came with advertised Windows Low support, then it does likely have a IR enabled camera. So I don't really know an answer to that. I think your best bet is taking your the model of your laptop and just searching it on your favorite web search tool. And let's move on to the last element of my software spotlight for today. Lettercase, which is another unreleased app, but it's just something I wanted to talk about again, because I like to keep an eye on new projects as they're starting out. So Lettercase is a new font manager in the works for GNOME. It's still not ready, and I couldn't even build it and compile it or run it. And okay, well, I could build it. It's written again. It's Rust in GTK. Rust is really taking off in GTK community. I could compile it. I could build it. It just uses Mason. If you know what Mason is, you know it's pretty easy to use. And but I just couldn't run it. I didn't spend too much time on it, but I don't know. The only thing worth mentioning here is that I'm really happy to see that some people are working on a new font manager for GNOME, because the built-in one is pretty bad, in my opinion. So let's see where that goes. Again, another project to keep an eye on. And we're out of news for today. So I think I will just talk about some stuff, some other stuff other than news. So something I didn't want to mention, but doesn't hurt, is that I got a new mouse. Let me see if I can put it in. Okay, there you go. I don't know what you can see of it. There it is. Kinda. Okay. This is the glorious Model O, and this is my new mouse. Why did I change mouse? I previously had a DeathAdder Elite, which has been a pretty good mouse, but I got coffee in it. I spelled coffee on it, and well, it mostly works, but some keys are just got sticky and it's not that great anymore because of me. It was my fault. But anyway, got me a chance to get on the ultralight mouse hype train, I guess. And I have to tell you, it's a pretty good mouse. I paid like 55 euros for it. It's $50 in the US, and yeah, so I overpaid for it a little bit. But anyway, I'm planning to make a review of it if I manage to get around it. But I want just to share some quick opinions with you. Having never used like a proper light mouse, I had no idea what to expect, but I got interested, mostly because many actual pro players, like Rocket Jumping Ninja, that use did like play the same games that I do, like Quake Champions, actually really enjoyed this kind of mice, and got me very curious to the point that I actually have one in my hands right now, and I've been playing a whole lot of Quake Champions lately. And while I'm not that good, I very much enjoy the game, but I'm not that good at it, and I've never have been. But anyway, I can appreciate the difference in my scores, my scores alone from changing mouse. It's a very different experience because you have kind of a lot more control, and it gets a little bit to get used to. You tend to overshoot your flicks a little bit, but once you get used to it, it's very strange. It's a strange feeling because you feel like you have more direct control over your aim, which is very interesting. This probably has very much to do with the fact that the actual mouse doesn't get so much inertia from rapid movement, so you just kind of have this feeling of having more control. And as for the mouse itself and Linux compatibility, there's no software for it for Linux, but one of the nice things is that you can control it using like combinations of buttons on the mouse itself, which is pretty cool. You don't have the whole bundle of things and the whole 16 million colors that you can choose for the RGB, but I think that's one thing I can get around. Overall, again, pretty good impression of this mouse. We'll probably work on a review soon. Let's look at the chat. English Bob 2.0 confirmed. Context: that YouTuber yeeted coffee on their PC accidentally. Yeah, I mean, it's stuff that happens. Fortunately, I take my coffee black, so at least the mouse didn't get sticky with sugar, milk, or cream, or whatever you people put in coffee. But anyway, it was well, a lesson learned. I shouldn't drink coffee from a small mug at my desk. Not anymore. The last espresso I made it like espressos. They're really short, and I poured it in a regular size mug, so no chance of spilling it again. Anyway, something else that I would like to touch on to is a bug that I apparently found in WebKit, or WebKit GTK, really. So I've been working on my. Okay, let me actually share you my screen. I've actually been working on improving my newsreader app feeds, and I've been tweaking and working with like the reader view mostly as of late. And let me just open up an article, for example, why Windows 7 users should switch to Linux. And this is the reader view, and this is like most of the work that I've been doing lately, because it's nice to have a more consistent reading experience that doesn't depend on the site that you're looking at. And what I found is that at some point, some characters, like some Unicode characters, got effed up. And I couldn't wrap my head around it, because I just checked every component in the pipeline for like building the actual HTML for the reader mode, and I couldn't figure out what caused this issue. Apparently, it's WebKit GTK. And let me actually show you what happens. I won't show you an actual article because I'd have to find one. But oh, then what could I? Okay, no, I can show you something. I can show you FlatHub. So if you don't know, FlatHub actually has RSS feeds. So for any new app that gets updated, you get an entry in your RSS feed. And let's maybe just open this up, and there you see it, FlatHub, then this weird character, which is an A with a circumflex accent that doesn't really belong here, and then the rest of the title. And you don't see any content here because FlatHub articles aren't really articles. They really are just the page for the application. And since it uses JavaScript, the reader doesn't know what to do with it except getting the actual page title. But anyway, the weird thing that happens is this character here. And this happens when you ask for a GTK WebKit view for the page source. And let me actually show you in Epiphany. So this is Epiphany, which is the GNOME browser. Let me actually open up this page here. I don't care for the app much. And there's something wrong with the theme, because I'm using the dark theme and it renders text like this, but just don't bother with it. That's not that's not a bug. That's something I probably effed up. You just right click and click page source, and there you have the effed up characters. Can I zoom in? There you go. Apparently some Unicode characters, and in particular it's this long dash here, Epiphany had, or WebKit GTK has some problems with. I tried asking on the FlatHub, not FlatHub, sorry, on the WebKit GTK IRC chat, but no one answered me. So I will probably report this soonish. But I just wanted to know if you can replicate this, because that's what I'm getting. But apparently Safari doesn't have this problem, so it's probably has to do more with WebKit GTK than WebKit itself. But as far as I could see, there's no actual bug tracker for WebKit GTK. There's just one for WebKit, plain WebKit. So I don't know what to do with that. Let's see what the chat has to say. Marco joins the chat and says, have you ever heard of Eiffel? All right. And Luca too. All right. These guys are just trolling me. Say hi, people. These are two of my classmates in university. And on Monday, we're going to have an exam. And it's going to be... well, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be about Git, about Docker, but also about this dead language by this really. I don't want to insult him like live. I don't like this kind of stuff. But let's just say Bertrand Meyer. I don't know what he thought when he created Eiffel. They're talking about Eiffel, which is this pretty weird language that's. I don't really want to talk about this. I just wanted to get distracted in this live stream and not think about the upcoming exam, but whatever. They brought it to me, so Eiffel is this terrible language that looks like Pascal, is kind of object oriented, and it's made to work with contracts. And there's a whole lot that's wrong with it, and most of the exercises that we need to prepare for the exam, most of the questions that we had to answer to, you could just answer most of them with because Eiffel sucks, which is nice. Francesco joins too. Is another classmate from the university. I am here. I'm there too. Want to listen to what you think about Eiffel. Okay, guys, just stop it. I don't have much to say about Eiffel. I just wanna. The only thing I can say about it is that it sucks, and that's all you need to know. And if you wanna do some bad to yourself, just try doing something with Eiffel. It's gonna be a nightmare, and the exam is also probably gonna be a nightmare. Well, not a nightmare, but the Eiffel part is gonna be stupidly tough. But anyway, all right, guys, I think we can end this live stream here. Thank you very much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, remember to smash the like button, or like the smash button, as Michael likes to say. And I'll be seeing you next week in the next episode of the Tech Pills weekly live stream. Take care, everybody.